Hello, my name's Ketevan. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a little book haul from the Malta Book Festival. I'm super excited to tell you about the book festival and the books I got, but I have been very sick, and actually I'm realizing just now that it is still very weird for me to do a video because I've had a raging ear infection for the past 2+ weeks now, and I still can't hear properly, so it's very weird to hear myself talking while I'm filming. So apologies for any awkwardness, but it still feels super weird as I'm talking right now. So anyway, yeah, suffice it to say, I went to Malta, specifically during the week of the Malta Book Fair Book Festival, because it is the biggest book festival of the year. And I also was visiting a friend and seeing my aunt and like doing a lot of other things. But the main reason I picked that week was to go to this book festival. So I was very excited to be there. And of course, midway through the book festival, I got sick and it was just a swollen throat, but I was still feeling like very exhausted, and I didn't get to go to the book festival as much as I wanted to. I still went for, I think, 3 nights. Like I went for a few hours each time. And so I got plenty of books. I fulfilled my book destiny at the book festival, but I really was planning to be there almost every single day and doing a lot more things, and I didn't get to do that. Whatever, it's fine. And then I really just had a swollen throat. I felt relatively okay. And then when I flew, my ears blocked up, and I think that's what gave me, I maybe had a little baby ear infection, and then the airplane made it into a big, gigantic, raging ear infection. And I've barely just kicked it, and I'm still not hearing properly. So yeah, but it was 100% worth it. I can say that fully because all of these books, well, not all of them, but the vast majority of them, I literally could not get anywhere else. So I'm very happy that I still went to the book fair, and I'm really happy with how everything all turned out in the end. It did suck for a lot of different reasons. I had to cancel a whole other vacation because I couldn't fly. Lots of things sucked, but the books make me happy. So we're here to talk about books. Let's talk about the books. Okay, so the first 2 books, I made myself promise that I was going to go to the Malta Book Festival and only buy books like about Malta or by Maltese authors. I wasn't going to go there and just shop. And then of course, that didn't happen, right? So I have 2 books here that like are not at all related, but I just have to get them at the book festival. And the first is What Willow Says by Lynn Buckle. This one is about a deaf girl and her grandmother, and it's Irish. Yeah, so this has just been like on my radar for a really long time. I love Irish literature, and I love deaf literature and just disability literature in general. So that I've been wanting to read for a very long time. And the Sterling Carrot Gold by Isabel Wadner. She's German, I think. I'm not sure. But anyway, this is like a super punky, like criminology lit is what I call it. Basically, I think the main character is arrested for maybe being trans, or I'm not sure. It's like a very a surreal inquiry into the real effects of state violence on gender nonconforming working class and Black bodies. So it's very like, I'm not sure what's exactly going to happen, and I don't think you're meant to. But anyway, so both of these lists have been on my to-buy list for a very long time. So the to-buy list for me is incredibly short because the vast majority of books I can get at the library. I can get them in some free way, and these 2 I could not, and it has a very small list, and so these have been on that list for a really long time. So the only way to read them is to buy them. So I said, you know what, I'll just buy them. The prices are cheaper than they were in Paris, so it's well worth it. So those 2 I'm quite happy with, even though I broke my rule. So I guess next up, I'm actually doing a mini, or rather I should say full publisher tour, because I bought all 5 books that this publisher has put out so far. It's called Praspar Press. They specialize in Maltese literature in and not in translation, but all in English. So whether or not it was written in English originally or translated from Maltese. And so there are 5 books so far that they have. And I was really excited because the main thing, or not the main thing, but I would say maybe the most popular thing they do is this Scintillas series. It's a collection, or a series rather, of collections of Maltese writing. And so the first one sold out very quickly, and no stores in continental Europe sold it. You could buy it in Malta, you could buy it, yeah, you can definitely buy it in the UK, maybe in the US somewhere, but nowhere in Europe could you buy this. So it had sold out, and I was really bummed. But then one of the bookstores at the book fair had it. So I was like very happy about that. And then of course they also had number 2. And then number 3 actually was released during the book fair. It was like a special event that of course I did not get to go to because I was not feeling well. But it's just, you know, collections of, you know, things like poetry, short stories, essays. It's not, they're not themed. It's just kind of like what the editors think are good. So I haven't dug into that quite yet, but it seems like a really nice little collection that I'm really looking forward to getting into. And then in addition to that, they have a collection of short stories by one author, Loran Vela, and it's called What Will It Take for Me to Leave? And it's very small, very short. Oh, the bookseller called it something. Oh, he had like a very specific term for it, and I loved it. It's basically they're very, very short stories. So like Lydia Davis or, you know, other authors that like, you know, it's like max 5 pages kind of thing, which is like my favorite type of short story. Like, give me a page, show me what you can do with 1 page and let's see if I'm impressed, you know? So for me, I like love this. This is probably the first book I'll read out of all the books I read from this book haul, just because I'm so excited for the short fiction formatting. And this last one is actually going to be probably the most interesting to the most number of people. It's called The Lives and Deaths of Kay Penza by Claire Azzopardi and is translated by Albert Gatt. So this one is like a meta mystery, murder mystery. So basically our protagonist, Amanda, her mother had abandoned her as a child. Her father, as an adult now, he's died. And as part of her mourning her father, she decides she needs to go and find her mother and figure out why her mother abandoned her, which appears to be related to the fact that her mother's twin sister had been murdered. So her twin sister is Kay Penza, which is the pen name that she uses to write murder mystery novels in Malta. And then in the 80s, this murder mystery novel writer was murdered in like a sea of corruption and assassination-like thing. So it's sort of like the mystery of why the mystery writer was murdered, if that makes sense. So it's like very meta. It's very interesting sounding. And I mean, I read the occasional mystery. Like I'll read an occasional Agatha Christie every once in a while. Like I'm not opposed to them. It's not my normal genre, but because it's meta and because it's in Malta, I'm like really, really intrigued. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And then the rest are nonfiction. That was pretty much all the literature. This one I'm super happy about because it was a much less expensive alternative to what I initially had wanted. So I initially had seen, so if you don't know, Malta's turning point in history was the Knights of Malta, which was a Christian military sect that you know, colonized Malta, but it made it a better place because they kept it secure as opposed to constantly being invaded. So Maltese people in general really, really love the Knights of Malta. And talking badly about them is very difficult to do. However, apparently this one author did it. He wrote a book all about all the sexual scandals, concubines, sex work that the Knights of Malta participated in, which is like very not okay. But the book was like a hardcover for €45, and I saw it on the first night of the festival, and I was like, I can't pay €45 on the first night. Like I have to see what else is here first, you know, da 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 da. And then lo and behold, when I go back to buy books from that bookstore, it had sold out. So I was like, okay, maybe it's a sign. Maybe I wasn't supposed to spend €45 on a single book, right? But then I came across this book, which I'm almost even happier about, because even though a very nice, expensive book which researched it really well and laid out all the different source facts, all that good stuff would have been great, this is almost like even more of an adventure. So this is basically a translated book that was published in the 1700s. So basically this French soldier was stationed here in Malta at some point and spent 2 years working here as a soldier, and then anonymously published this book about all the like scandals that the Knights of Malta do and all his adventures. So the tagline, so it's the Order of Malta exposed, the account that scandalized Europe and lifted the lid on the corruption and sexual libertinage in an island ran by the Knights. So it was like kind of like a thing back in the day when it was published, and then of course like everyone like forgot about it, but they basically translated it into English and published it, and this was much less expensive, only €12. So even though this is really just like a first-hand account of one random French soldier, I think it'll be actually almost more of a fun book to read just because it'll be more of a story and more like one person's experience rather than like a hard history book, which I still might be interested in reading at some point, but I'm really happy I got this one instead. And then the next one I have is called The Maltese Cinderella and the Women's Storytelling Tradition by Veronica Veen. Actually, what I did end up managing to go to a talk by the author. She is an independent anthropologist, which I did not realize that was like an option, I suppose, especially since the University of Malta has a very robust anthropology and archaeology department. So I wasn't sure exactly what was going on there, but she basically self-publishes her own work based on the, she specializes in women of Gozo, which is one of the islands in Malta and where my family's from. So I was particularly interested. And so this book in particular, it's basically her explaining the Maltese version of Cinderella. It's definitely more of like a dense book, but it does have a bunch of fairy tales, Maltese fairy tales at the end. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, having that as a resource because I really love folktales in particular and obviously Maltese folktales. And then this one I'm probably the most excited about, just because this is the book that I didn't want to write for sure, but I wanted to read this book so badly and I literally had no idea it existed. It never even occurred to me that it could exist until I saw it on the shelf and I immediately said, oh my gosh, I need to own this. It's called Decolonizing the Maltese Mind in Search of Identity by Charles Shureb. And this is, I mean, this is a little personal obviously, but like, you know, like, I'm sure you've picked up on by now on this channel that I'm against colonization and and I, you know, want to work towards decolonizing not only my life and my mind, but the world in general, right? And I think literature is an important way to do that, blah, blah, blah. You got that. So basically this book kind of will go over that particular journey in the Maltese context in a nonfiction sense. So this is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and I just really couldn't have even imagined that there was an actual whole big book all about this subject. But yeah, in case you didn't know, Malta has never been independent except since 1964, when independence was granted from the British Empire. And before that, it was basically just a series of different groups ruling Malta because Malta is a very strategically placed island. It is very valuable in terms of having control over it, in terms of shipping in and around the Mediterranean and for naval power as well. So yeah, it's definitely, we've definitely experienced a long line of colonization, and of course the most recent British colonization is the hardest to kick, right? Because it's very hard to kick British mindsets, even though you know that they're toxic and not, you know, in line with your actual own personal or cultural values, but it, you know, it invades everywhere, right? So this is like super important to me. I'm very looking forward to reading this. I'm probably going to go very slow. Like I'm probably going to be like highlighting and reading just like a few pages every night kind of vibe, which I'm totally fine with. And then similarly, again, this is a close second. I literally would never have guessed in a million years that this book existed, but I'm so happy that it does, so I immediately had to buy it. It's called Beloved Malta, Stories of Sexual and Gender Identity, and it's published by Heritage Malta, which is sort of like the government agency that kind of manages all the heritage resources on the island. So it's definitely, it's not a picture book, it's kind of like more like a coffee table book, but it has like very small text in there. With pictures, if you can, I don't know, get a general idea. So I'm very excited about this book. It's basically a timeline / historical counting of all the historical figures that we're aware of that were, you know, queer or, you know, sexual minorities in some way in Malta, and all the activism they did, or, you know, boundary pushing that they participated in, whatever it was. So it's about a lot of different people, but it's also just the general history of sexual minorities in Malta, which is super, super exciting. If you didn't know, Malta is the best country in the world to be gay or queer. There's like an international, or rather there's a European ranking, but I don't think other country, like outside of Europe, there's not much of competition. So, but in terms of like legal statutes and like rights, Malta, in terms of like the law, is like perfection. I will say that environmentally, you know, and socially, it's also totally cool. Like nobody's super homophobic in Malta, which is ironic because like it's so conservative in so many other ways. But when it comes to LGBT issues, left as the day can come, you know? So anyway, this book I'm super excited about. I'll probably flip through it relatively soon. A lot of these figures I have no idea about. They're like truly like super historical figures. Oh yeah, so it starts off with like a nice little timeline, and then each page is like a different entry. So that's really cool. So yeah, I'll probably read through the timeline, just get an idea, and then read through the rest of the book like a little bit slower. And I'm just like super excited to have this. It's like the only kind of coffee table book I really would be like proud to put on my coffee table. But anyway, so that's that for all of the books I bought at the Malta Book Fair. I guess I should talk to you a little bit about the fair, but really it was just a typical book fair. It was super fun. I wish I'd been able to go to more events. It was really well organized. It was a really nice space at the National Conference Center. And I really had a lot of fun, even though I wish I could have attended more, but I think I'll definitely be going next year for sure. It's a little bit harder when you're not in an English speaking country to like go to bookish things just because it's so limited, but I'm curious, like, do you go to book fairs or like publisher fairs or anything like that? Like, have you ever been to one? I'm not even sure what they're really supposed to be like. I just kind of showed up and like, you know, attended. But yeah, I'd love to hear all about your experiences at one of these types of events. And thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.